this is a great transition, honestly. The future of Mertz at the Florida Gators. Thinking of Malik Murphy, think of the two quarterbacks that I just mentioned from Georgia going into the portal, who I would believe, have a lot of stock behind them, especially coming out of that Georgia process. And then Malik Murphy is showing to be, when Quinn went down, I was like, no big deal. Malik will come in there and do what we thought he would do, and think that he can do. Because I thought he was going to enter into the portal at the beginning of this year because of the talent that he has. Now, Mertz's future. It was talked about today on a local station. Thank you to Between the Hedges for mentioning this, because I didn't really think that Mertz was a possibility of leaving. But with the success that he's had, he has now put himself in a position where NFL scouts probably are looking at him before. When before he was just a college quarterback, but he has immensely increased his draft stock to possibly be a 6th, 7th rounder. He's very much so. When before, like I said, he probably would have just been a free agent. So how does this play out, right? I don't think he goes into the portal. He doesn't go anywhere else and takes the chance of playing in a new system and not looking as good, right? Does he stay? Well, your best wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, you've been thrown to all year long, almost 1,000 yards, by the way, more than Keon Coleman, is leaving. He will be entering into the draft. So that's got to say, if I'm Mertz, like, hey, my best guy's leaving, right? And then DJ Lagway, obviously, that's been, I can't think of the kid who went to Ole Miss. His reason for leaving was because DJ Lagway was going to be there. Now, the one pro that Mertz will have, and the advantage is DJ will be there in December, an early signing period. So I think he'll know pretty quickly, kind of like Emory Jones did, whether or not, hey, is this going to be like mine and I'm helping Lagway, or is it a real true dogfight here? And this kid's really, really good, and I'm going to be maybe week 2, week 3, they're going to be calling for my head. And I could hurt my draft stock if I were to do that. I didn't even think this conversation would be a factor. But it frightens me a little bit because I would like for Mertz to come back. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to stay another year. I don't think he's transferring anywhere. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, he has really, really good statistics this year. The problem is he doesn't have any good pieces around him. I'm not saying that he doesn't have receivers or anything. I'm talking about more offensive line. Like, can you rip into that portal this year, get some decent offensive linemen? Can you recruit some decent, high school offensive linemen now that some of these defensive linemen have just went to the wayside? I think that I think there's a bigger ceiling for Mertz. I really do. I think if Mertz had a better offensive line this year, he would be a lot more productive. And I think he knows that. And you don't get into this game to be 6th or 7th round. You get into this game to be first round and your name called either first or anywhere in that first round. So I think he will return, and I'm okay with him returning. I know a lot of people, and I know this is what's going to happen next year. If Mertz, say, has a bad game, everybody's going to be screaming for DJ Lagway. You already know it, because everybody loves the backup quarterback, especially when they're a 5-star, and probably he might be the number 2 or number 1 by the end of the cycle because of how he's playing right now. So you get DJ Lagway in there, and then you have Mertz, and that will actually up the competition there in practice as well. So now he'll actually have somebody to compete with him in practice. But yeah, I'm all for Mertz returning. I think he's done very, very well. I think he is. I think he was in the wrong system, as I said before he even came to Florida. And I think as the years went on, as he's gotten used to the receivers, he's gotten used to the people around him, he's been very, very productive. The unfortunate part, as I said, you need some offensive linemen to protect the guy. He's been sacked over 20 plus times. And I think that, if Billy can do a good job portal wise, if he can do any kind of job offensive line wise, getting some guys in here next year, I think Mertz obviously is going to start and he'll be here. But I don't think he's transferring, and I don't think he's going to elect to go to the draft, because you just, like I said, you don't play this game to be 6th or 7th round.
Well, so look, I agree with your comment of being first round draft pick. I mean, unless he comes out and he Joey Burrows it next year, I don't believe I don't think he has the arm to be a first rounder no matter what he's able to do. So I was complimenting him on being a 5th to 6th rounder, in the sense that before this season, he had, in my opinion, had 0 draft stock. So he now has draft stock under him that he didn't have prior. So my thing is, if I'm Mertz, like, hey, do I risk losing my draft stock by going back another year? So that was where more so of like, look, you have an opportunity to cash in, kind of like what Anthony did. We talk about that constantly. Like, you have an opportunity. The future's a little unknown. I know what I am at right now, and I don't know my confident ability to go into it. But I do believe that, look, for me, if I'm Billy, you got to close him. You've got to keep him in and show that, hey, look, we're building. for us to be the success that we need, because the last thing we need to do is throw Lagway into a pit of fire. I think if we can have a smooth transition, that is going to be ideal to Billy's success in the future. So Mertz, in my opinion, is a key point to connecting the two together.
And think about the packages you could run with Mertz and DJ Lagway. Like if you need a good running play from a quarterback, you put Lagway in, you take him out. Like kind of like
The leak,
I
we
I
talked
reference
about
this
it.
all the time. I reference it all the time. Kind of like Tim Tebow and Chris Leak. But yeah, I mean, like when you look at it too, like look at Kyle Trask from 2019 to 2020. And like really look at the film of like his arm strength. It wasn't that great, but when you entered into 2020, you could see he was torpedoing the ball down the field. You can work on your arm strength in the off season, and I'm wondering like if Mertz does return, do we see a lot more deep passes? Do we see a lot more deep shots? I think that will. I think that'll be a bigger question for obviously for the development of Graham Mertz and the coaching staff. But I mean, the way that he's doing things right now, I mean, I don't see why he would not want to return and play for another year.
Agreed.
And on top of that, like who do you have behind Mertz without DJ Lagway? You have Max Brown and Jack Miller and
Jack's
yeah,
fine.
and there's
Yeah.
no slide on them. There's no slide on them. But I mean, like you're going to need some depth, and I'm pretty sure if he was wanting to leave, they're going to up some NIL money for him to stay another year.
That's the big thing too, right? Like, hey, if he's thinking about it, just throw him a little bit of extra cash to keep him locked in, because I think he is an asset to the team currently. But I also believe that, look, I feel he might have a little, credit to Billy in the resurgence of like, look, like I owe you this, right? We came here, we were able to rebuild what was essentially gone in my career. And although Ricky is leaving, I think Eugene Wilson, is obviously going to be a threat. Boardingham, Caleb Douglas, who went down earlier this year. We've got some good guys coming in next year. Mizdell, Gene, a whole another year with those guys. Who knows what we're able to do? I think, like you said, the biggest factor is going to be the line. And if I'm Mertz, that's what I'm looking at. Billy, what are you going to do to protect me so I can continue to flourish in this offense that you've put me in, that I've been enjoying, but I need to do more? Steve, what are you thoughts on it, big guy?
Look, I think Mertz is in kind of a tough spot here, right? Yes, I mean, right now, considering the way that he's played versus the expectation of what he would do coming in, probably he might be at the peak of his of the demand for him, because of the numbers that he's been able to put up. Now, if you're thinking about going to the NFL, the first thing that these scouts are going to look at is, tell me that you can throw the ball effectively enough with strength, with arm strength
Sure.
in the NFL, because there's not been enough body of work of Mertz pushing that ball into a tight corner on a 15-yard out route, or just being able to just put the ball on a dime, a missile through the middle of the field, more than 15 yards downfield. So I think arm strength would be a question. Now, is that a confidence thing where he's not confident enough in the offense to where he's utilizing the arm strength? That's a possibility in and of itself, that he's just going with the safer play. This guy may very well have a cannon on him that he's just not utilizing because he's trying to play the safe route. Because again, if Florida gets behind by 2 scores, they don't have the ability to come back. So he's trying to maybe play their shorter checkdowns and the more safe offense to get out there. So look, I think at this point, the best thing that could happen for Mertz is that he comes back and he's able to have a significant role within the offense throughout the year to let him transition out with a good body of work. The worst thing that could happen to Mertz is a potential injury, or a couple of games where it just, the fans are ready for Lagway transition to happen, and he doesn't get the opportunity to get out there and really play enough ball to push him into an opportunity for NFL scouts to want to look at him next year. He'd be great to help, Lagway learn the offense, and then let Lagway's athletic ability maybe do some things that Mertz was limited, obviously, by line of scrimmage or maybe even just physical ability. But yeah, I think right this year he sticks, and hopefully he can get Lagway up to this par as quickly as possible. Lagway in the second year should be great.
And Matt S says, what about Max Brown? I think that's going to be another factor too, of when they come back in the early January. How is Max Brown taking it? How is DJ taking it? And I think Mertz is going to probably evaluate even more so of like how thick is this competition going to be, which could be a good thing, which could motivate Mertz in a sense that, hey, this is going to increase my stock for the following year. The people saying that, hey, this class is too thick, the class doesn't really affect him, in my opinion. I don't feel like he's going to be at the lower end of the board regardless of what year he goes into. And honestly, next year's class, if Quinn Ewers is waiting, Shador Sanders is going to be in that class. Carson Beck might be in that class is looking just as thick. So we got a fun 2 years of draft. Cody, make sure you buckle in to look forward to. So, look, it was a fun little conversation. I'm glad we were able to hash that out a little bit.